all members voted? Does any member wish to change the vote? This vote, the yeas are 216 and the nays are 211. The question of consideration is decided in the affirmative. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Okay. On this vote, the yeas are 217 and the nays are 211. The question of consideration is decided in the affirmative. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. For what purpose does the gentleman from Massachusetts seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Section 426 of the Congressional Budget and Impoundment Control Act of 1974, I make a point of order against consideration of the rule, House Resolution 436. Section 426 of the Budget Act specifically states that the Rules Committee may not waive the point of order prescribed by Section 425 of that same Act. House Resolution 436 states that all points of order against consideration of the bill are waived. Therefore, I make a point of order pursuant to Section 426 that this rule may not be considered.
The gentleman from Massachusetts makes a point of order that the resolution violates Section 426A of the Congressional Budget Act of 1974. The gentleman has met the threshold burden under the rule, and the gentleman from Massachusetts and a member opposed each will control 10 minutes of debate on the question of consideration. Following debate, the chair will put the question of consideration as the statutory means of disposing of the point of order. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Massachusetts.
Mr. Speaker, the House is not in order, Mr. Speaker.
The House will be in order. Gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, let me say this once again. Democrats will not stand by and watch Trump and his billionaire friends destroy this country without putting up one hell of a fight. And because this rule
be in order.
And because this rule waives the point of order against unfunded mandates, it is not in order to consider it on the floor. The bill Republicans are attempting to jam through the House this week cuts food assistance for moms and dads, kids and people with disabilities, veterans and seniors. It goes after the most important people in our lives, our families, all to fund a massive tax break for the richest people in this country. What the hell is wrong with these people, Mr. Speaker? But more than just a massive betrayal of the American people, this bill is also a massive new unfunded mandate on states. Don't just take my word for it. The nonpartisan experts at the Congressional Budget Office said that Title I of the bill, the Agriculture Committee's portion of this awful bill, would impose intergovernmental mandates by requiring states, for the first time ever, to provide state funding for food assistance benefits, increasing the share of food assistance administrative costs paid by states, and requiring state agencies to perform additional administrative duties. This massive new unfunded mandate would cost states a whopping $19 billion each year. And Mr. Speaker, where the hell are states going to come up with this kind of money? They can't. And so what will happen? Is that people will get kicked off of food assistance, they will get less benefits, and they will go hungry. This will increase hunger. State after state, governor after governor has written to Congress begging us not to pass this awful bill. They have made it very clear that if this bill goes through, states will be forced to cut benefits, kick eligible people off of food assistance entirely, or raise taxes to pay for this massive new bureaucracy that Republicans are creating in every state. The chairman of the Agriculture Committee's home state of Pennsylvania would have to come up with over $1 billion to cover the state's share of benefit costs. There is no state in the country who is able to take on this kind of massive unfunded mandate. So we're talking about basic needs for people, a food assistance benefit of $2 per meal so that people don't go hungry. And by the way, that money not only lifts people out of poverty, it improves health and uplifts local economies too. Hunger costs this country, and food assistance programs save us money. Workers who are hungry are less productive in work. Kids who go to school hungry don't learn. Seniors who take their medication on an empty stomach end up in emergency rooms. We live in the richest country on earth, for God's sake, and not a single kid in this country should go to bed hungry. Not a single damn one. And especially not when Republicans are giving millionaires and billionaires a big fat tax break. And I think Republicans...
House order.
And I think, Mr. Speaker...
The gentleman will suspend. Gentleman may proceed.
And I think Republicans know exactly what they are doing here. They know that this bill will kick millions and millions of people off of their modest food assistance. They know that their cuts will hurt kids and moms and dads and working families and seniors and veterans and people with disabilities. This is an unbelievably cruel and rotten thing to do. I reserve my time.
Reserves. For what purpose does the gentlelady from Indiana seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I rise to claim time in opposition to the point of order and in favor of consideration of the resolution.
The gentlelady is recognized for 10 minutes.
The question before the House is, should the House now consider House Resolution 436? The gentleman on the other side of the aisle is certainly correct. The bill before us today does impose a number of intergovernmental mandates, but let's look at what's considered in those. The bill requires states to have skin in the game on SNAP. The bill requires states to be more responsible about how Medicaid is funded. The bill provides needed tax relief for seniors. These are good things that reduce the size and scope of a federal government that is encroaching on the everyday lives of Americans, and it protects the American people from a Democrat Party that prioritizes illegal immigrants over vulnerable American families. In order to allow the House to continue...
The gentlelady will suspend.
In order to allow the House to continue its scheduled business for the day, I urge members to vote yes on the question of consideration of the resolution, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentlelady reserves. The gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, enough with the BS about states having skin in the game. This is about throwing families off of food assistance, and it's an awful thing to do. And at this point...
The House will be in order.
And at this time, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to yield 2.5 minutes to the gentlewoman from Connecticut, the ranking member of the Nutrition Subcommittee, Ms. Hayes.
The gentlelady is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise against this House Republican reconciliation bill that would put 42 million Americans at risk of losing their SNAP benefits. I'd argue that my state of Connecticut, that sends more money to the federal government than Indiana, already has skin in the game. As ranking member of the Nutrition and Foreign Agriculture Subcommittee, it's notable that we've had no hearings on the state cost-sharing provisions, or on the Thrifty Food Plan, or on the impact of access to SNAP. House Republicans are pushing untested policy proposals that have real-life consequences on the people in my community. During the agriculture reconciliation markup, I offered a common-sense amendment stating that this legislation can only take effect once the USDA and all state agencies issue reports evaluating and certifying that any changes made to SNAP will not result in a reduction of benefits to individuals or decrease participation. No Republican on committee voted for that amendment. Hunger is a policy choice, and today we are considering legislation that makes the choice to take food away from people. The reconciliation bill we are considering here today is the largest ever cut to SNAP. Approximately $313 billion being taken away from the most vulnerable in this country. Hungry children, hungry families, hungry veterans, and hungry seniors. And I guarantee you, they're not just in Connecticut. Republicans are pushing a legislative package that guts SNAP, the most effective and efficient anti-poverty program in our nation. The cost-sharing provisions in this legislation are going to shift the financial burden to states, forcing states to cut benefits, eligibility, or both to reduce costs. They're pushing work requirements with no workforce development, pushing reporting requirements with no administrative reports, pushing for cuts to children who are on this program without considering that they will also lose free and reduced lunch at school. They don't want to feed kids at home. They don't want to feed kids at school. It is just cruel. Every provision in this program is cruel, and they know it. That's why none of them spoke on it in committee. That's why they were silent in budget. That's why they have nothing to say. That's why they have no response. That's why they don't hold town halls. That's why they don't answer questions. All they do is tweet, repeat, and hide in the back until they vote yes.
Gentlelady's time has expired. Gentlemen, the House will be in order.
I reserve.
The House will be in order.
I reserve.
The gentleman from Massachusetts reserves. The gentlelady from Indiana is recognized.
I reserve.
Gentlelady reserves. Gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, by the way, it's not just people in Connecticut that are threatened by this budget. I would say to the gentlewoman from Indiana that people in her district, there are 54,000 people in your district that are going to be threatened losing their SNAP benefits because of what you are voting for today in the Republican budget. So I don't know how you deal with that. At this point, I'd like to yield 2 minutes to the gentlewoman from Ohio, the vice-ranking member of the Agriculture Committee, Ms. Brown.
Thank you, Ranking Member
The gentlelady is recognized.
I rise in strong opposition to this rule and the underlying bill. Let's be clear. Republicans are paying for massive tax cuts for millionaires and billionaires by cutting $300 billion from SNAP. But instead of owning those cuts, Republicans are punting their problems to the states, forcing governors and legislators to do the dirty work of denying food assistance. That's not fiscal responsibility. That's political cowardice. This is an unfunded federal mandate, plain and simple. States would have to cover at least 5% of SNAP benefits and up to 25%. What they call skin in the game is unworkable. The hit to states' budgets would be massive, up to $4.5 billion over 10 years in Louisiana, $4 billion in Alabama, $15 billion in Florida, and $7.5 billion in my home state of Ohio. So what does that mean? Well, I'm glad you asked. It means fewer dollars for schools, for opioid response, for basic services. Any way you cut it, families lose. And if states can't pick up the bill, they will have to cut benefits or kick folks off the program, a program that currently provides $6 a day. $6 a day on average. This plan will take away food from kids, working families, veterans, seniors, and the disabled. It will hit red states, blue states, every state, and every district. Even Republicans know how damaging this is. That's why they've delayed implementation until when? After the next election. But hiding the consequences doesn't make them less real. Your own state legislators, Democrats and Republicans, oppose this plan. The National Conference of State Legislatures calls it fiscally unsustainable and warns it will harm the very people SNAP is meant to help. This is a shameful attempt to dodge accountability while handing out tax breaks on the backs of hungry families. I urge my colleagues, vote no, protect SNAP, don't make struggling Americans pay for tax breaks for the wealthy.
The gentleman from Massachusetts reserves. The House will be in order. Gentlelady from Indiana is recognized.
I reserve.
Gentlelady reserved. Gentleman from
Can I-
Massachusetts is
may I-
recognized.
May I inquire how many more speakers the gentlelady has?
I'm prepared to close.
I'm just trying,
The gentleman from Massachusetts can close.
how much time do I have left?
The gentleman has 1 minute remaining.
Okay. Mr. Speaker, I yield myself to remaining time. Let me just say to my Republican friends, hunger is a political condition. We have the money, we have the infrastructure, we know what to do to end it, we have everything but the political will. And you bring to the floor a bill that robs from poor people, takes money away from the most incredible food assistance program in the world, and you take that and you use it not to end hunger, but to pay for tax cuts for millionaires and billionaires. That is shameful. That is shameful. And you put a big unfunded mandate on states. So stand with us on the right side of history. Stand with people who need help. For once in your life, do something to help people who really need help and not just rewarding those at the top who are well off and well connected. Please vote, stand with us in stopping this rule and vote no on this.
Members are reminded to direct their remarks to the chair. The gentlelady from Indiana is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, how much time do I have remaining?
Gentlelady has 9 minutes remaining.
Perfect. So, Mr. Speaker, the Democrats claim that this is providing tax cuts for the wealthy. Well, let's just talk about that. The House is not in order.
Gentlelady will suspend.
This bill includes no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and provides tax reliefs for seniors on Social Security. This will protect the largest tax cut for middle class and working families in American history.
Suspend. Gentlelady's recognized.
Americans will see a double-digit % decrease in their taxes. And let's just, if we want to talk about districts, Mr. Speaker.
Gentlelady will suspend. The House is not in order.
Let's talk about the second
Gentlelady's
district of
recognized.
Massachusetts, Mr. Speaker, under which it is home to 524,530 taxpayers. The average taxpayer in Massachusetts' 2nd District would see a 20% tax hike if the Trump tax cuts expire, which is what my Democrat colleagues across the aisle are fighting for. They're fighting for your taxes to go up. A family of 4 making $95,495 in the Massachusetts 2nd District, the median income would see a $2,141 tax increase if the Trump tax cuts expire. That's about worth 10 weeks worth of groceries for a typical family of 4 in that region. Now let's talk for a moment too, Mr. Speaker, about SNAP benefits. Only Democrats would protect error rates in SNAP benefits, saying that integrity in the program is a cut. But this is ensuring that benefits are available to the people who are eligible for those and need them most. Anything else is fraud. Republicans are ensuring that SNAP prioritizes benefits for American citizens and protects the program's long-term stability by closing loopholes and requiring cost sharing for states that have error rates that are unfeasible. We are focusing on protecting tax cuts for the American people across the board. That's what we're trying to do here, Mr. Speaker. Anything else that we hear from the Democrats are stall tactics. We must continue so the House can begin our consideration of this historic legislation to deliver on President Trump's agenda. I urge our members to vote yes on the question, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentlelady yields back. All time for debate has expired. The question is, will the House now consider the resolution? Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker,
The question of
I ask for the yeas and nays.
the yeas and nays are requested. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 15-minute vote. motion of consideration is decided in the affirmative. Without objection, the motion is to reconsider is laid on the table. The gentlewoman from Indiana is recognized for 1 hour.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For the purpose of debate only, I yield myself the customary 30 minutes to I yield the customary 30 minutes to the gentleman from Massachusetts, Mr. McGovern, pending which I yield myself such time as I may consume. During consideration of this resolution, all time yielded is for the purpose of debate only. Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of this rule and in support of the underlying legislation. This morning, the Rules Committee met and produced a rule, H.Res. 436, providing for the House's consideration of H.R. 1, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. This provides for a closed rule on the bill. The rule provides 1 hour of debate for the chair and ranking member of the Committee on the Budget or their respective designees, as well as an additional 1 hour equally divided and controlled by the chair and ranking member of the Committee on Ways and Means or their respective designees. Additionally, the rule provides 1 motion to recommit. Today, after months of hard work, hours of testimony in hearings, House Republicans are advancing the One Big Beautiful Bill Act to deliver on President Trump's America First agenda. Mr. Speaker, the House is not in order.
The gentlelady is correct. The House is not in order.
We've heard
The
plenty
gentlelady is recognized.
We've heard plenty of fear-mongering and flat-out dishonesty from the Democrats and their liberal media allies about what this bill actually does. Earlier this morning, they challenged us to debate this bill in the light of day. Well, it may be the middle of the night, but we're here, wide awake and ready to defend it, because the truth doesn't sleep, and neither do we when it comes for fighting for the American people. So let's talk about how this bill delivers for the American people. It makes the very successful 2017 Trump tax cuts permanent, protecting the average taxpayer from a 22% tax increase. It unleashes American energy production and allows us to drill, baby, drill. It provides the largest border security investment in history and empowers ICE to deport the millions of illegal immigrants that were allowed in under President Joe Biden. It also completes 700 miles of border wall and stops the flow of fentanyl into our communities. It shuts down the blatant abuse that has allowed 1.4 million illegal immigrants to access taxpayer-funded Medicaid, draining resources meant for our most vulnerable citizens. It establishes modest work requirements for able-bodied adults with no dependents to receive Medicaid. It drives down costs for seniors by increasing transparency in pharmacy benefit managers and expanding access to the medications they need by providing more choices. It ends the reckless Biden student loan giveaways that favored liberal elites over working-class Americans at taxpayer expense. It provides nearly $150 billion in resources to our military to improve areas from service member quality of life and strengthens our shipbuilding capacity. It also makes targeted reinvestments and improvements to farm policy and other rural priorities that support our farmers and ranchers. It includes no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, car loan interest deductibility for autos made in America, and provides tax relief for seniors. And the list of wins goes on and on and on in this one big, beautiful bill. Our friends across the aisle will try to deflect from these real and tangible benefits. They want to deceive you and scare you, and I'm sorry for that. Don't believe them. They seem to forget that 77 million Americans rejected their America Last policies last November. They're now trying to convince the American people that a bill that secures the border, invests in our military, extends tax relief to millions of hardworking Americans, and protects Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security for the people who need it most is somehow not in the best interest of the country. But the American people know better. The American people know Trump's tax cuts worked and need to be extended. The American people know that it's in the best interest of our national security to secure the border. They know the world needs American energy leadership. They know that the men and women who serve in the armed forces need additional resources to counter the growing threats and defend American interest across the globe. We are putting Americans first by deporting illegal immigrants and protecting taxpayer-funded benefits for those who truly need them. Everything you'll hear from the Democrats tonight is wrong. Again, don't believe them. How many times do you have to get duped by their dishonesty before you stop listening? The sky is not falling. Mr. Speaker, today we are delivering on President Trump's agenda. I look forward to the consideration of this one big, beautiful bill, and I urge the passage of this rule. I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentlelady reserves. The gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman's recognized.
Mr. Speaker, over 100 Democrats just spent hours and hours and hours debating hundreds of amendments in the Rules Committee for over 19 hours. And the reason why is simple. We are fighting back because this bill is a moral disgrace. It rips health care from millions of Americans. It cuts Medicaid and Medicare, lifelines for seniors, children, working families, and people with disabilities. It takes food out of the mouths of hungry kids and veterans. And for what? To shovel tax breaks into the overflowing pockets of billionaires and giant corporations. Let's call this what it is: theft. Stealing from those with the least to give to those with the most. It's not just bad policy, it's a betrayal of the American people. Republicans know that this bill is toxic. That's why they started their rules hearing at 1 o'clock, by the way, yesterday morning, because they're terrified that the American people might actually see what's in this GOP tax scam and be outraged by what they're doing. Republicans don't want to talk about it. They want us to just shut up and pass this bill. They want a rubber stamp. Trump said to them, close your eyes and vote for it. Well, guess what? No. We're not gonna do that. We will not stay silent. We will not close our eyes and do what Trump says. Our eyes are open, Mr. Speaker, and our voices are loud. We're here to fight. And this bill is about whose side you are on. And Democrats choose to stand with our communities and our neighbors and our families and our people, and not the ultra-rich Republican mega donors and billionaires that write big fat campaign contributions to buy votes. This is a rotten, ugly, bad bill that will hurt the people I represent. It will hurt millions of people in this country. And the sad reality is, Mr. Speaker, Republicans just don't care. Democrats are united. And with strength in our mission, with unity in our purpose, we are here to vote hell no on this monstrosity of a bill. I reserve my time.
Gentleman from Massachusetts reserves. Gentlelady from Indiana is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 4 minutes to the chairwoman of the Rules Committee, Dr. Virginia Fox from North Carolina.
Gentlelady is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the gentlewoman from Indiana for yielding and for her great work on this rule. Amen. Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of the rule and the underlying legislation. After a marathon session in the Rules Committee, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act now stands right here on the floor of the People's House. For months, the House's committees, chairmen, members, and staff have worked to craft this legislation. Let me tell you something, Mr. Speaker, it is truly big and beautiful. It is a clear, full-throated response to the millions of hardworking men and women across the entire nation who believe that America is due for a serious course correction. These men and women categorically rejected the dysfunction and disarray of the last 4 years under the Biden-Harris administration. And while our colleagues across the aisle have resorted to casting aspersions, conjuring up misleading claims, and fear-mongering about this legislation, Republicans are the ones who've put pen to paper and have created one of the most consequential pieces of legislation in our nation's history. The American people and this government, by extension, cannot afford inaction. Americans need this legislation to ensure our economic survival and the sustainability of this Republican government. More than 77 million Americans entrusted us with this explicit responsibility to govern in such a decisive, forward-thinking manner that will lead America straight into the golden age. The express purpose of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act is this: to ensure that our federal spending, taxation, and other revenue-generating concepts align with the current needs of the American people and bring us into that new American era. And how do we achieve this grand realignment? Through this great reconciliation project. We're executing the instructions given to the committees pursuant to the budget resolution, one that passed both chambers and is binding on this body and the Senate. We're not interested in rhetorical jousting or succumbing to the status quo. We're interested in delivering real, tangible results to the American people. These results are achieving the full potential of our energy dominance, realizing a secured border, and establishing fiscal certainty for our great American future. I urge my colleagues to be part of delivering real, tangible results by voting yes on the rule and yes on the underlying legislation. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Gentlelady from Indiana reserves. Gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Yeah. Let me just say to the distinguished chairwoman of the Rules Committee, you know what gives people fiscal certainty? Food in their refrigerators. Now, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from Colorado, Ms. DeGette.
Gentlelady is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, among the many other deficiencies of the bill, it is a direct assault on women's reproductive freedom. Number one, it defunds Planned Parenthood, which means if this bill passes, 1 million Americans will have no pap smears. They'll have no breast cancer screening. They'll have no well women visits. That's the first thing it does. But then the manager's amendment, introduced in the dead of night, says 1 of 7 Americans who are on the insurance exchanges will no longer be able to get abortion coverage on those exchanges with their own money. I can see why the Republicans wanted to do this in the dead of night, because after the Dobbs decision, America woke up. We realized that this is an important service, and the women and families of America, when they wake up and find out the direct assault on reproductive freedom in this bill, they're going to be mad, and they're not going to forget when they go to the ballot box in 2026. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Gentleman from Massachusetts reserves. Gentlelady from Indiana is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 3 minutes to my friend, the gentleman from New York, Mr. Langworthy.
Gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, thank you to the gentlewoman from Indiana for yielding the time. I rise today in strong support of the rule and the big, beautiful bill, because this is not just a budget bill. This is the beginning of a great American comeback. That's what the people demanded when they went to the polls last November. They voted to take our country back from chaos, from open borders, from crushing inflation, and from a government that rewards fraud while punishing hard work. This bill answers that call. It puts working families first, with expanded tax relief for families and workers and the hard-working men and women that are paying the bills in this country. This bill tells them, we see you and we've got your back. And at the same time, we go after the rot that's taken hold here in Washington for far too long. Just last year, Medicaid alone paid out $36 billion in improper payments. That's fraud, that's theft, and that's a disgrace. That's money that's not taking care of our most vulnerable, which we have to protect at all costs. This bill stops it cold with tough enforcement, eligibility checks, and a full crackdown on waste, fraud, and abuse. We also bring back work requirements for able-bodied adults without dependents. It's just common sense, and it's worked before. In fact, in the 90s, under a Democratic president, Bill Clinton, he worked with Congress and passed historic welfare reform that helped millions of people move from dependence to dignity. We've restored that principle now in this bill, and because a nation that rewards hard work is a nation that thrives. And we stopped throwing taxpayer dollars at failed green schemes and electric vehicle mandates that working families simply can't afford and don't want. Instead, we doubled down on American energy, oil, gas, nuclear, to lower costs and to make this country safer and to make this country stronger than ever. So let's be clear, this bill is more than just policy, it's a turning point. It's the beginning of the great American comeback that President Trump is leading and that this House Republican majority was elected to deliver. The American people are tired of excuses. They want results. They want accountability. They want a government that works for them, not for bureaucrats, not for special interests, and not for people gaming the system. The big, beautiful bill delivers. It protects taxpayers. It restores work. It ends waste, and it gets America back on track. So I urge my colleagues, vote yes on this rule. Vote yes on the big, beautiful bill. Vote to launch the great American comeback, and vote to stand with the people who sent us here. Let's pass this big, beautiful bill, and let the great American comeback begin. And I yield back, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman yields back. Gentlelady from Indiana reserves. Gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
So, Mr. Speaker, some people may be wondering, why are we debating this bill at 1:20 in the morning, which is prime time in Guam? It's because they are ashamed of what they are bringing to this House floor, and they should be ashamed. I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from California, Mr. Tran.
Gentleman from California is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in opposition to this reckless attempt by Republicans to force through a reconciliation bill that makes life harder for the working families in California's 45th District. My constituents deserve better than this budget. The American people deserves better than this budget. Republicans are taking money out of your pocket and giving it to billionaires and big companies. Over 250,000 people in my district rely on Medicaid, over 100,000 of them are children and seniors. Nearly 40,000 children, seniors, veterans, and families in my district will have less food on their tables because of Republicans' cuts to SNAP. Our constituents sent us here to fight for them. They are looking for us for answers, and all Republicans can offer are higher costs for less care. That's not okay with me. Our constituents deserve better, and I urge my colleagues to vote no. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Massachusetts reserves. Gentlelady from Indiana is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield 1 minute to my friend, the gentleman from Missouri, Mr. Alford.
The gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you to the gentlelady. Mr. Speaker, we now have a chance to deliver real, lasting change for the American people. The one big, beautiful bill is not just a promise that we as House Republicans and President Trump made. This is a generational opportunity to reset the direction of our great nation. Let me be clear. My colleagues on the other side of the aisle don't like this bill because it puts hard-working Americans first, not the bureaucrats, not special interests, and not those who break our laws. Our friends on the left like to shout, "The sky is falling, the sky is falling." Enough with the Chicken Little mentality in this body. This bill stops the largest tax increase in U.S. history. This bill will increase take-home pay by more than $13,000 and grow wages by more than $11,000. It protects Medicaid for our citizens by removing more than 1 million illegal aliens from taxpayer-funded benefits. And yes, Mr. Speaker, this draws the clear line. No taxpayer dollars for sex change surgeries for anyone. I urge a yes vote on this big, beautiful bill.
Gentleman yields back. Gentlelady from Indiana reserves. Gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Yeah, my friends are so proud of this bill that they're doing it at 1:25 a.m. in the morning. And the bottom line is the reason why we don't like the bill is, we don't think billionaires deserve any more tax cuts, and we don't want to support a bill that screws regular people. But, Mr. Speaker, I'm going to urge that we defeat the previous question, and if we do, I will offer an amendment to the rule to make an order, amendment number 233, offered by Leader Jeffries, which strikes all provisions that would cause millions of Americans to lose health care and food assistance. We spent over 20 hours in the Rules Committee today trying to stop this ugly, cruel Republican bill. Over 100 Democrats came to testify. We did everything we could to get them to change this bill so that it would not strip health care and food assistance from the most vulnerable people in our nation. Now we will give Republicans one last chance not to strip vital programs like Medicaid and SNAP away from millions of Americans. Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to insert the text of my amendment into the record, along with any extraneous material, immediately prior to the vote on the previous question.
Without objection.
And, Mr. Speaker, to discuss our proposal, I yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from Illinois, Ms. Underwood.
The gentlelady is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to speak out on behalf of millions of Americans who are about to have their health care torn away from them. Republicans have been working through the night to hand Donald Trump a massive tax cut to all those billionaires who are in the front row of his inauguration. It seems that nothing is off limits, and everything is on the table to get that done, including meals for hungry families, working families' health care, and the incredible gains that we have made to get more families affordable coverage. Today, Republicans blocked my amendment to lower health care costs, refusing to accept a proposal that Donald Trump's own pollster said is the most popular way to make care more affordable. And the Medicaid and nutrition cuts that they're pushing, they will be devastating. Hospitals and nursing homes will close and they will not come back. Kids will go hungry. Millions will lose their health care and more people will die. We will not stop fighting for the American people to have access to high-quality, affordable health care. I urge my colleagues to defeat the previous question, and I yield back.
Gentleman from Massachusetts reserves. Gentlelady from Indiana is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield 1 minute to my very good friend, the gentlelady from Utah, Ms. Malloy.
Gentlelady is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to support the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, legislation that prioritizes fiscal responsibility while boosting America's economy. The Energy and Commerce Committee provisions provide $912 billion in deficit reduction. The Ways and Means Committee provision makes real tax relief. This bill reins in federal spending levels by rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse, and strengthens our economy by ensuring that working American families can thrive without overburdensome taxes or costly regulations. We're moving the economy and the government in the right direction. The Natural Resources Committee title reduces the deficit by at least $18.5 billion while restoring common sense management to our federal lands and environmental programs. It will generate revenue through oil and gas leases, coal leases on federal land, leases for geothermal energy production, timber sales, and other activities that stimulate local economies while generating federal revenue. It cuts waste and strengthens resource development, all while achieving significant fiscal savings. This bill is good for Utah, and it's good for America. The bill helps all Americans by helping us keep our borders secure, by providing law enforcement with the tools they need. So I support the bill. Thank you, and I yield back.
Gentlelady from Indiana reserves. Gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 1 1/2 minutes to the gentleman from Kentucky, a man who is not afraid to speak his mind about fiscal responsibility, Mr. Massey.
Gentleman from Kentucky is recognized for 90 seconds.
Well, I'd love to stand here and tell the American people, we can cut your taxes and we can increase spending and everything's going to be just fine. But I can't do that because I'm here to deliver a dose of reality. This bill dramatically increases deficits in the near term, but promises our government will be fiscally responsible 5 years from now. Where have we heard that before? How do you bind a future Congress to these promises? This bill is a debt bomb ticking. Congress can do funny math, fantasy math, if it wants, but bond investors don't. And this week, they sent us a message. Moody's downgraded our credit rating, and the bond investors who buy our debt and finance our debt demanded higher interest rates on the 10-year note, the 20-year note, and the 30-year note. What does this mean? Very soon, the government will be paying $16,000 of interest alone per U.S. family. And what are we telling them? Instead of taking care of that problem, we're going to give you a $1,600 tax break. Under the taxing and spending levels in this bill, we're going to rack up, the authors say, $20 trillion of new debt over the next 10 years. I'm telling you, it's closer to $30 trillion of new debt in the next 10 years. Mr. Speaker, we're not rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic tonight. We're putting coal in the boiler and setting a course for the iceberg. If something is beautiful, you don't do it after midnight. I oppose this bill.
Gentleman's time has expired. Gentleman from Massachusetts reserves. Gentlelady from Indiana is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield 1 minute to my friend, the gentleman from Iowa, Mr. Nunn.
Gentleman from Iowa is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Tonight we have the opportunity to deliver on a promise made to the American people. Border security, energy independence, tax cuts for working class families. Now, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, millionaires, many of them themselves may bemoan what it may do, but I promise you this, for folks back home in Iowa, this is a working class tax cut. I spoke to an Iowa mom, Sarah Curry, who used her child tax credit to help buy a new water heater for her family when it went out last winter and made sure her daughter got to speech therapy. I talked to Jolyn Reason, an Iowa farmer who was able to continue their family's legacy of a family farm because they didn't have a death tax slash cut that would have allowed a foreign country to buy their family Century Farm. In fact, the average household will see a $5,000 increase in real income that goes straight back into our economy. And that, my friends, is how you not only grow the economy, but pay down a national deficit. This mechanism is something the CBO apparently doesn't understand with over $1 trillion in growth. Mr. Speaker, I support this bill. The American people demand this bill.
Gentlelady from Indiana reserves. Gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, you got to love these Republicans. You know, the two things they don't want to talk about are tax cuts for billionaires, which are in this budget reconciliation bill, and the debt. And this bill adds trillions to the debt. I now yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from Nevada, Ms. Titus.
Gentlelady is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and Mr. Leader. You know, the Republicans may think that they can hide what they're doing to the American people by voting on this one big, bad, beautiful BS bill in the middle of the night, but they need to think again. I represent Las Vegas. It's a 24-hour town. My constituents are up. They're not asleep. They're working, and they are watching. You know, they can see you cutting benefits for families while cutting taxes for billionaires. They can see you taking away food from children and health care from women. They can see you stripping funds from renewable energy, Medicaid, and public education. They are not asleep. They are not blind. Their eyes are wide open. So you can say whatever you want to, but they're watching what you're doing. Thank you, and I yield back.
All right.
Members are reminded to direct their remarks to the chair. Gentleman from Massachusetts reserves. Gentlelady from Indiana is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Muser.
Gentleman from Pennsylvania is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Speaker, we are here this late because our time has been wasted for the last 3 or 4 hours on the nonsense coming from the left. We were elected to improve our country, to work with President Trump, to improve our national security, strengthen our economy, bring fiscal sanity to an out-of-control budget, deliver accountability, and lead the world towards peace. And frankly, to bring common sense so people start trusting our government again. This big, beautiful bill is about caring about America. It's designed to strengthen our national security, fortify our now secure border, which was turned into a disaster by you all, responsibly grow our domestic energy supply, and create more opportunity for Americans. It also gives small businesses the type of tax environment and certainty they need and deserve. Not one where we're slammed by major tax increases, which would occur by voting no on this bill. Voting no on this bill will assure massive tax hikes and will continue the waste, abuse, and fraud that is just running rampant through our federal government. Mr. Speaker, this bill is just the beginning. It sets the stage for making America as great as it should be. I yield back.
Gentlelady from Indiana reserves. Gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Yeah. Boy, that was weird. Mr. Speaker, I want to yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Rhode Island, Mr. Magaziner.
Gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise against the cruelty of a bill that would take food from the hungry and medicine from the sick to give billions of tax cuts to billionaires who don't need it. I rise against a Republican Party that is too afraid to do town halls and face their own voters, too afraid to debate us in committees to support this terrible bill. I rise for the working people who are struggling under the weight of Donald Trump's tariffs, the largest tax increase on the middle class in a generation. They can't afford higher co-pays or higher premiums. For the seniors who will have nowhere to go when their nursing homes are shut down by the Medicaid cuts in this bill, and the children children who will have to pay the tab for the trillions of debt that you are adding. To my Republican colleagues, you told your voters that you would change Washington, but Washington has changed you. Do better, vote no. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Members are reminded to direct their remarks to the chair. The gentleman from Massachusetts reserves. Gentlelady from Indiana is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Ohio, Mr. Taylor.
The gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in strong support of the One Big Beautiful Bill, which will cut rampant waste, fraud, and abuse in critical government programs so they're protected for vulnerable Americans who need them most for generations to come. With this bill, President Trump and Republicans in Congress are defending Medicaid, protecting SNAP, and eliminating fraud so taxpayers' dollars are spent on Americans in need, not stolen by illegal immigrants or other fraudsters. This critical legislation will also make Trump tax cuts, which benefit all American taxpayers, permanent. It will cut taxes for hardworking families while Democrats try to drive them up. The bill will also allocate $60 billion towards farm bill programs to support our nation's farmers, ranchers, and producers who so desperately need support. Remember this, Republicans are the ones protecting these critical government programs. When Democrats refuse to support this bill, they are choosing to hike up taxes on American families, allow fraud to run rampant and benefit programs, and cut off aid to our farmers who put food on our tables. Passing this America First bill is vital to our nation's future in both the long and short term. Thank you, and I yield back.
Gentleman's time has expired. Gentlelady from Indiana reserves. Gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from New Jersey, Ms. Poe.
Gentlelady is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The massive cuts to Medicaid within this bill will unleash catastrophic impact across America and my district. Hospitals and nursing homes could close and health care prices will rise as a result of these cuts. More than 1.7 million New Jerseyans, including over 1/3 of all children in our state, get their health care through Medicaid. Our state will lose 1/4 of the federal funding if it receives for Medicaid. That's $3.6 billion. This is what this bill will do if it becomes law. These cuts will especially hurt families in our poorest communities, and that's why I offered an amendment to require continuous Medicaid coverage through pregnancy and a year postpartum. If you support women and working families, there's no reason to oppose this provision. However, my amendments was blocked along with 5 other common sense amendments. Please vote no on this rule amendment.
The gentlelady's time has expired.
Thank you.
Gentleman from Massachusetts reserves. Gentlelady from Indiana is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Montana, Mr. Downing.
Gentleman from Montana is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the gentlewoman from Indiana for yielding. Right now, the Montanans that I represent are staring down the barrel of a 26% tax increase. If Congress does not act soon, the average Treasure State family of 4 will lose more than $1,400 per year. President Trump won a decisive victory on creating jobs, lowering costs, and making his signature tax law permanent. This resolution advances his full agenda that the American people overwhelmingly elected us to enact. This is a game changer for individual filers as well as farmers, ranchers, and small business owners that make up the backbone of the Treasure State's economy. Our reconciliation bill delivers permanent death tax relief, benefiting over 2 million family-owned farms, ranches, and small businesses that would otherwise see their exemption cut in half. Our bill provides permanent relief for the small businesses around the country that employ nearly half of Americans, while honoring President Trump's promise of no tax on overtime and no tax on tips. Put plainly, a vote against this rule, or our One Big Beautiful Bill, is a vote to raise taxes on every single American. On that, I urge my colleagues to support this rule.
Gentleman's time has expired. Gentlelady from Indiana reserves. The gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I just said to the gentleman, the reason why the tax cuts for middle-class families might expire is because that's the way you wrote them in the 2017 Republican tax scam bill. You made the corporate tax cuts permanent, but those for working people you made expire. So it's your fault. I yield 1 minute now to the gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Caston.
So if you
Members
run a
reminded direct their remarks to the chair. The gentleman's recognized.
So if you run a company that's losing market share, you got three choices. You can go bankrupt, you can innovate, or you can come whining to Washington saying competition scares me. In this bill, the Republican Party is delivering that protection from competition to the fossil fuel sector. Some numbers. The last 15 years, coal use is down 50%, oil use is flat, gas is losing market share, and that's because people are transitioning to renewables. It's because if you don't have to burn fossil fuel, you don't have to buy fossil fuel, and people like cheap energy. That is awesome. In the IRA, we passed rules to make sure that everybody could access those technologies, not just ones with disposable income. Great for consumers. We prioritize those investments in red and blue states. The result of all that is that the oil and gas sector doesn't like competition for the same reason you all don't like DEI, because mediocre folks are as scared about meritocracies. So they're now slashing those programs that were building out transmission, that were leading a renaissance in nuclear technology, that were building out wind and solar, not because they're clean, because they're cheap. So we're getting higher energy prices, a less reliable grid, more extreme weather, all so that the fossil fuel industry doesn't have to face competition. That's not capitalism, it's state-directed socialism, and you own your life choices.
The gentleman from Massachusetts reserves. The gentlelady from Indiana is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Herodopoulos.
Thank you very much. For 1 minute.
Thank you very much. And I had a great conversation with their interns the other day, and they said, I've been studying the tax bill. The current tax rate on the wealthiest Americans is 37%. The new tax rate, so to speak, it will be 37%. And so they asked me, then why do they keep on talking about cutting taxes for the rich? It's who is getting the cut. It is simple. It is the person who's earned Social Security. It's the person who's earned those tips. It's the person who's earned that overtime pay. The people who make America work have been suffering for the last 4 years from failed government policies.
Gentleman yields back. Gentlelady from Indiana reserves. Gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Unbelievable. Mr. Speaker, I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from New Hampshire, Mr. Pappas.
Gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you to the ranking member for yielding. I rise tonight because health care is on the line, and so is the well-being and the dignity of the people I serve in New Hampshire. The phones in my office won't stop ringing because people I represent are beyond angry about the proposal to slash Medicaid. Last week, I sat down with a constituent, Donka Facciolo of Laconia. She lives with a disability, and thanks to Medicaid, she receives skilled nursing, transportation, and employment support. Because of that help, she can live on her own. And another constituent that I met, Kevin Brett, told me the same. Without Medicaid, he's not sure where he'd go. Parents of individuals with disabilities have told me that they could lose in-home care for their kids, and in doing so, they'd be forced to quit their jobs. What kind of choice is that for these parents? So slashing Medicaid is cruel. It would take away Granite Staters' ability to receive care, their chance to work. It would rob them of their independence. And we know that it's all being ripped away in order to give big tax breaks to billionaires and the biggest corporations. So I'm a no on this reckless scheme. I urge my colleagues to vote no as well, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Massachusetts reserves. The gentlelady from Indiana is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from West Virginia, Mr. Moore.
The gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in favor of the one big, beautiful bill that delivers on President Trump's promise to make America great again. The bill makes America energy dominant again by repealing the Democrats' disastrous green news scam, expediting permitting and unleashing all of the below, that's the ground, coal, oil, and natural gas. The legislation makes America safe again by building the wall, giving needed resources to enforce our immigration laws, and rebuild our military. We also make America prosperous again by providing the largest tax cut in history, including no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, slashing taxes on Social Security. Tipped workers will see a $1,700 increase in take-home pay in this bill. That's a win for the American people. Finally, this bill puts American families first by increasing and making permanent the child tax credit and enhancing the adoption tax credit and defunding, thank God, big abortion. President Trump made a promise to the American people, and this bill fulfills it. Thank you.
Gentlelady from Indiana reserves. Gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from Ohio, Ms. Sykes.
Gentlelady is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Every time I hear the name and the title of H.R. 1, I am stunned with how childish and immature it is to name a bill the way that the majority has. But truly, it is the cruelty that is the worst part of this bill. When I was first elected, I told the people of Ohio's 13th Congressional District, it may be my name on the ballot, but we are all going to Congress together. And I made that promise because as a representative, it is my responsibility to make sure that my constituents' needs are being addressed here in Washington. The people in Ohio's 13th Congressional District need lower costs. They need access to care, and they do not need this horrible, horrible bill. I have said many times before, the access to maternal health, to infant mortality reduction, to making sure that people have access to substance and mental health services is what is so important, and there was no Republican mandate to kick our grandmothers out of nursing homes. But the most important part about this is that when 30,000 jobs are on the line in Ohio's 13th Congressional District. Mr. Speaker, what are you going to say to my constituents? Will you call them lazy, worthless, unworthy of food, shelter, and human dignity? I already know the answer because the answer is yes, because I've heard you talk about constituents like mine and all over this country with disdain as though they are not important.
Gentlelady's
and they are
recognized
totally
for additional
unworthy
30
of this
seconds.
horrible, horrific, mean, cruel, nasty bill.
Gentlelady yields back. Gentleman from Massachusetts reserves. Gentlelady from Indiana is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. McDowell.
The gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, it comes as no surprise that my colleagues on the other side of the aisle are afraid of the truth when speaking about the bill before us today. We now have extensive reporting that the last administration kept the American people in the dark about the health of President Biden. They refused to call the flood of illegals coming across our border a crisis. My colleagues on the other side of the aisle tried putting lipstick on their inflationary economy rather than changing course. So it should come as no shock, Mr. Speaker, that these same folks are misleading Americans about the bill before us today. The one big beautiful bill will be a major course correction, delivering massive tax relief, certainty for small businesses, a historic investment in border security, and we are unleashing American energy. Mr. Speaker, it seems to me that too many in this body live their own truth, not the truth. The truth is, this puts America first, and I urge all of my colleagues to support this rule. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentlelady from Indiana reserves. Gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Alabama, Mr. Figures.
Gentleman from Alabama is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, we're talking border security, and the same administration just let in our Chapo's family. Well, Chapo's family. I rise today as somebody representing one of the poorest districts in this country. Individual median income around $30,000. 1 in 4 people in my district receive SNAP benefits. 1 in 4 people in my district receive Medicaid benefits. These are people who cannot afford to lose health care access. They cannot afford to lose access to SNAP benefits. And the truth of the matter is, that people will lose those benefits, all in an effort to make long money even longer. And so my question is their money being longer worth people in my district's lives being shorter? And it's not. It never will be. It never can be. We have to stand up for these people. I came to Congress to be a voice for people who need things like Medicaid, who need things like SNAP benefits. And every day I'm here, I will push back against efforts to cut back on those benefits. And with that, I yield back.
Yields back. Gentleman from Massachusetts reserves. Gentlelady from Indiana is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Utah, Dr. Kennedy.
Gentleman from Utah is recognized for 1 minute.
I thank the gentlelady for the yielding of that time, and thank you, Mr. Speaker. As a family physician, I've seen both the benefits and issues associated with Medicaid. Currently, there are 7.6 million people on Medicaid who should not be there. 1.4 million illegal immigrants, 1.2 million that are ineligible for Medicaid, and 4.8 million able-bodied adults that choose not to work. It's time we crack down on fraud, waste, and abuse in such a vital program for those that need it. As we assess the state of Medicaid, we find that roughly 1 in every 4 dollars are spent improperly, with more than 80% of these payments stemming from eligibility errors. Medicaid is critically important for countless Americans, and this bill will ensure that those who truly need it can continue to access the care they depend on. Medicaid was designed to support the disabled, the pregnant women and children, and those that are in need. It is ballooned with able-bodied adults who are currently not required to be working. Mr. Speaker, Republicans are trying to fix Medicaid and preserve it for those that need it. And with that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentlelady from Indiana reserves. Gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 1 minute to the representative from Delaware, Ms. McBride.
Gentlelady is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I offered a simple but essential amendment to this slash and burn Republican budget. This budget creates red tape that would result in vulnerable seniors losing their health care. My amendment would have prevented that red tape unless the Congressional Budget Office certifies that this bill will not result in any senior losing coverage. Why did Republicans block my amendment? Because they know their budget cuts care. And that's why they're doing all of this in the dead of night. It's why they're rushing this through. Because they want to eviscerate health care so long as they get tax breaks for their billionaire best friends. It may be very, very late at night, but it's not too late for my Republican colleagues to do the right thing. It's not too late to protect Medicaid. It's not too late to protect SNAP. It's not too late to protect their constituents. But I won't hold my breath. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Gentleman from Massachusetts reserves. Gentlelady from Indiana is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield 1 minute to the gentlelady from Florida, Ms. Luna.
Gentlelady from Florida is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, and thank you so much for everyone for being here today. I can tell you that I'm very excited to vote for this bill for a few reasons. Starting in November, when I was campaigning with our very popular president, who won not just the national popular vote, but also the Electoral College, who campaigned on ending taxes on tips, taxes on overtime pay, everything that would help the American people that have felt far too long left by Washington, D.C., and we are finally able to deliver. What are we delivering on? It doesn't just stop there. It's ending taxes on car loan interest, which so many people struggle with. It's going to end additional tax and bring additional tax relief for seniors. It makes sure that we restore border security, which, by the way, I'd like to remind the American people that it was our colleagues that were responsible for giving many of these program benefits to people that never paid into the program, to people that were here illegally hurting our very own people. We talk about defending seniors, we talk about defending the most needy, and yet these programs were literally at risk of insolvency had we not done this. So what I can tell you is I'm very proudly supporting this bill. That also includes an increase in the child tax credit and an increase to individual tax deduction. I ask everyone to join us in this, and with that, please support the very big, beautiful bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentlelady from Indiana reserves. Gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 1.5 minutes to the gentleman from California, the chairman of the Democratic Caucus, Mr. Aguilar.
Gentleman is recognized.
I thank the gentleman from Massachusetts for yielding. I'm grateful for his leadership and the leadership of the Rules Committee Democrats who are fighting back against these massive tax giveaways to billionaires and corporations raking in record profits. Mr. Speaker, the American people are getting squeezed by reckless tariffs that are raising prices on every family, and it's only going to get worse. With prices still too high, I don't understand how my Republican colleagues can justify taking food off of the table for women, children, and families. While so many working families are struggling, I don't understand how they can justify a tax bill that only makes life easier for billionaires like Elon Musk. In the dark of night, they want to pass this GOP tax scam. We saw today that the president has said that a vote against this legislation represents an ultimate betrayal. The real betrayal, Mr. Speaker, is to the working people of this country who will pay the price so that billionaires can pay less in taxes. Mr. Speaker, our friends on the other side of the aisle said that they wouldn't cut Medicaid, and that's exactly what this bill does. They said that they would end taxes on tips, but they forgot to mention that the trade-off is that you'll lose your health care. The American people didn't sign up for these broken promises. They asked their elected officials to work together to lower costs. My colleagues in the House Democratic Caucus are waiting for these so-called reasonable Republicans to join us. Let's focus on bringing down the cost of housing, rent, gas, and groceries, and let's stop rewarding billionaires at the expense of the middle class.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Massachusetts reserves. Gentlelady from Indiana is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield 1 minute to the gentlelady from North Dakota, Ms. Fedorchak.
The gentlelady is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in strong support of the One Big Beautiful Bill on behalf of these people and thousands of others like them. They are not millionaires or billionaires. They're family farmers. Brent and Stephanie Baldwin farm wheat, sugar beets, edible beans, and soybeans in St. Thomas, North Dakota. They have 3 kids. They're 4th-generation farmers. And unless Congress acts, the tax relief they depend on, the 199A deduction, will expire at the end of this year. Our bill will permanently expand this and increase this deduction for pass-through businesses like the Baldwins. In 2020 alone, 67,000 taxpayers in my state, including many farmers, claimed the 199A deduction, putting $682 million in their pockets. That's real money for working-class Americans. Our bill also eliminates the death tax for family-owned businesses. We can't have the big, bloated federal government stealing their hard work and wasting it on fraud and abuse. But for our family farmers and producers, the backbone of rural America, this is urgent.
Time has expired.
Let's make these tax cuts permanent and pass this bill. Thank you. I yield back.
The gentlelady yields back. Gentlelady from Indiana reserves. Gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
I yield 1.5 minutes to the gentleman from New York, Mr. Ocasio-Cortez.
Gentlelady is recognized for 90 seconds.
Thank you so much, and I thank the ranking member for yielding his time. 13.7 million Americans. 13.7 million Americans are the number of people in this country whose health care are going to be stripped in this bill. Now, Republicans are going to try to tell you every single distraction in the book from that essential number. I want people at home to understand that Medicaid and the federal matching funds for Medicaid can make up 30 to 40% of some of the state budgets that we have going on back in your home. Republicans have put this bill together, rushed it together in a matter of hours on the back of a napkin, shaking it, walking out of the White House, and brought it right here to this floor. They are defunding Planned Parenthood. They are ending tons of Medicaid coverage for 13.7 million Americans, including Affordable Care Act coverage as well. And if you want to get an abortion and have a silver plan on a health care plan that you paid for, you will also be affected by this legislation as well. Also, allowing suppressors on guns to be deregulated to some of the largest amounts that we have seen since the 1930s. This is just a Christmas bill.
I yield the gentlelady 30 seconds.
And so I want people to understand, for my Republican colleagues who are sure what is in and not in this bill, in this process that has been this rushed, when you wake up in the morning, you will realize that you voted to defund Planned Parenthood and to take away health care from 13.7 million Americans. And when this country wakes up in the morning, there will be consequences to pay for this. And I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Gentleman from Massachusetts reserves. Gentlelady from Indiana is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Van Orden.
Gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I would like to take a moment to ground this House in reality and make sure that everyone understands that words have consequences and that the violent political rhetoric that has been delivered over the last 48 to 72 hours by my Democrat colleagues have affected Americans across this country and the globe. It's been reported that 2 Israeli diplomats were shot leaving an event at the Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C. by someone that yelled, "Free, free Palestine." And so I would like to spend the rest of my time that has been yielded by Ms. Houchin and ask respectfully my colleagues to have a moment of silence for these 2 people that were murdered by someone for political purposes.
Silence. Gentleman's time has expired and yields back. The gentlelady from Indiana reserves. The gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 2 minutes to the gentlewoman from California, the Speaker Emerita, Ms. Pelosi.
Gentlelady is recognized for 2 minutes.
I thank the gentleman for yielding and for his exceptional leadership, and all of the members of the Rules Committee for your stamina, and to you for your values. Mr. Speaker, Martin Luther King, the Reverend Martin Luther King said, of all the forms of inequality and injustice in health is the most shocking and the most inhuman because it also often results in physical death. He went on to talk about access to health care as a right. But this builds in inequality and inhumanity exactly what Republicans have in store for the American people. I was 5 hours at the Rules Committee. I know some of you were longer. And it was stiff competition as to what was the worst provision they came up with. But let's just talk about work requirements for a moment. You said with great pride, oh, if they have a 7-year-old child, they have to go to work. A 7-year-old child is a little child. I just recall for you a conversation I had with some moms. One of them said, if I have a work requirement to have Medicaid, this is what it means to me. If my child is sick, I can't go to work because I can't afford child care. I can't go, if I miss work, I'll miss pay, and I can't afford to miss the pay. And if I miss going to work, I can be fired. So what I'll have to do is put my child on the school bus sick, because the child is sick, and I have to go to work to have Medicaid. Then, of course, as has been mentioned about the silencers, is just beyond comprehension in terms of safety for our children. Because of the Republicans' tax bill scam, millions of American families, seniors and veterans, vulnerable children and all the rest, and people with disabilities will lose their health care. Rural hospitals will be closed, millions of jobs will be destroyed across America, and all of this to give another massive tax cut to the richest people in America. It is a Republican Robin Hood in reverse, one of the largest transfers of wealth from working families to the rich in our country. I urge a no vote on the rule and on the bill.
Gentlelady yields back. Gentleman from Massachusetts reserves. Gentlelady from Indiana is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Edwards.
Thank you.
Gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, once again, Democrats are distorting the truth to smear a bill that protects working class Americans. They scream, tax cuts for billionaires, yet not a single personal income tax rate from the Trump tax cuts is being changed. Tax cuts that pulled over 6 million people out of poverty and brought our country's poverty rate to a record low. What they don't want Americans to know is that without this bill, families face a 22% tax hike. House Republicans are making sure that does not happen. We're cutting taxes, boosting take-home pay, and securing millions of American manufacturing jobs. We're delivering on conservative promises, no taxes on tips, overtime, or car interest. We're strengthening the child tax credit, making the paid leave credit permanent, and repealing the Democrats' IRS overreach targeting gig workers with their $600 rule. This bill stands for working families, economic freedom, and common sense. The left can't spend all they want, but the facts don't lie. Thank you, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentlelady from Indiana reserves. Gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
I yield 1.5 minutes to the gentlewoman from Florida, Ms. Wasserman Schultz.
Gentlelady from Florida is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to oppose this one big ugly bill. Instead of cutting costs, it imposes the biggest health care cut ever forcing 14 million people to lose coverage. This bill makes the deepest cut to nutrition assistance in U.S. history, ripping food from the mouths of kids, seniors, veterans, and people with disabilities. It guts clean energy, hurts farmers, expands abortion bans, and explodes the debt so badly it will trigger $500 billion in cuts to Medicare. And its 1,000-plus pages all boil down to this. $1.1 trillion is swiped from SNAP and Medicaid and stuffed right into the pockets of the richest 1%. It no longer, thankfully, gives tax breaks to tanning beds, although you tried that in the dead of night, yet strips Affordable Care Act coverage from millions of families and raises deductibles and co-pays for millions more. This is worse than the haves versus the have-nots. It's just one big giveaway to the have-yachts. And just like Trump did to all his businesses, this bill will drive our constituents and our country into bankruptcy. Any Republican with a spine, which you clearly lack, and a conscience, which you also lack, should join me in voting hell no. I yield back the balance of my time.
Members are reminded to direct their remarks to the chair. The gentleman from Massachusetts reserves. Gentlelady from Indiana is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Fine.
Gentleman from Florida is recognized for 1 minute.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I am a new person in this chamber, and one of the things I've observed over the last 6 weeks is a fundamental question of who is it that we should be most worried about. See, Rome is burning, and it doesn't seem as though people realize that. It is not thoughtful, it is not generous, it is not compassionate to borrow money from our children and our grandchildren to give it to people who should not be in our country anyway. It is not compassionate to borrow money from them to give it to people for health care if they could work and they could provide it themselves. But what is compassionate is to tell someone who is a waitress working hard to support her family that she doesn't have to pay taxes on her tips. It is compassionate to someone like my father who is blind to know he might not have to pay taxes on his Social Security. There is compassion in this bill. There is compassion for the American people, and I hope that everyone will support it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman yields back. Gentlelady from Indiana reserves. Gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, can I ask the gentlelady how many more speakers she has? Okay,
got one more speaker,
then I will reserve.
Gentleman from Massachusetts reserves. Gentlelady from Indiana is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Colorado, Mr. Craig.
Gentleman from Colorado is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A lot of talk tonight about what happens if we vote for this bill. And what are my colleagues voting for if they vote against this bill? Democrats who aren't going to vote for this bill, they'll be voting for a $4.5 trillion tax increase. They'll be voting for waste, fraud, and abuse in Medicaid. They'll be voting for illegal immigrants stealing from Medicaid. They'll be voting for continuing green energy scams. They'll be for allowing environmental extremists to continue to drive up the costs of energy for average American families. And what are they voting against? They're voting against a $150 billion increase for our military. And they're voting against a base housing allowance increase for our soldiers. That's in this bill. They're voting against tax relief for seniors and working Americans. Let's end the nonsense. Let's do what's right for America. Let's pass this rule and pass this bill, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentlelady from Indiana reserves. Gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Gentlelady, have any other speakers, or is she the final speaker?
I'm prepared to close.
And may I ask how much time I have, Mr. Speaker?
Gentleman has 5.5 minutes. Gentlelady has 4 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, one of the previous Republican speakers got up and said Rome is burning. I hate to tell them, but Republicans are in charge. And Trump is your Caesar. You know, CBO just did an analysis of this budget, and they did an analysis of how it impacts the bottom 10% and the top 10% income earners in this country. And guess what? The bottom 10% get screwed, and the top 10% get a big raise in terms of revenue, in terms of tax breaks. So let me end where I began, Mr. Speaker. This is about whose side you are on. Whose side are you on, Mr. Speaker? Because from where I stand, it looks like you and the entire Republican Party betrayed the American people to side with the billionaires. People are so tired of getting screwed over by a system that doesn't work for them. They are fed up and they want change. They want us to make things better for regular, hardworking people, not just the rich and the powerful. And what Republicans' big, ugly bill does is the exact opposite. Our colleagues in Trump are perpetuating the exact broken system that people hate and despise. More tax breaks for billionaires while regular people get screwed. More giveaways for the rich and powerful while moms and dads struggle to get by. More loopholes into the tax code for Wall Street while working families fall further and further behind. That's the Republican agenda. That's what you guys think is big and beautiful. Greed, corruption, and tax breaks for billionaires. You know, my state of Massachusetts funds states like Indiana, where the gentlelady is from. We get back less than we give. And so how dare she or anybody else vote to steal our tax money and give it to billionaires? So no, we will not go quietly. And no, we will not give up. We will fight this cruel, corrupt, immoral bill every step of the way because the people we represent are counting on us, and we will never stop fighting for them. I urge every member of this House to vote hell no, never, absolutely not on this terrible disgrace of a bill. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentlelady from Indiana is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself the balance of my time.
Gentlelady is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, Rome is burning, but not because of the leadership of Republicans and Donald Trump. After 4 years of failed leadership under President Biden, our country faces many challenges. But Republicans, along with President Trump, are ready to address them head on and get our country back on track. The one big, beautiful bill is here, and the American people are ready to see us deliver on our promises. This is historic legislation that is a bill for working Americans. Here's 3 words I want you to remember: ineligible, illegal, and able. Those are the people who we don't believe should be taking Medicaid from pregnant women, children, the disabled, and the elderly. We've heard a lot about 13.7 million people are going to lose their health care. That number was debunked by the New York Times. That's a newspaper that doesn't write a lot of things that are friendly to our side. It's not that way. This is a bill that is going to support pregnant women, children, the disabled, and the elderly. It supports our veterans, our farmers, and our small business owners. It secures tax certainty, permitting reform, and our border. It quite simply, the one big, beautiful bill is America first, and I'm proud to support it. With this vote, we can unlock the golden age of America. I look forward to moving the one big, beautiful bill out of the House and delivering for the American people and who voted for the golden age to return. I ask my colleagues to join me in voting yes on the previous question and yes on the rule. Mr. Speaker, I yield back the balance of my time and move the previous question on the resolution.
Gentlelady yields back. The question is on ordering the previous question on the resolution. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it.
Oh, Mr. Speaker, I asked for the yeas and nays and a hearing aid.
Thanks for your concern. The yeas and nays are requested. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their vote by electronic device. Pursuant to Clause 9 of Rule 20, this 15-minute vote on ordering the previous question will be followed by 5-minute votes on adoption of the resolution if ordered and passage of the Senate Joint Resolution 31. This is a 15-minute vote.
change their vote. On this vote, the yeas are 213, the nays are 211. The previous question is ordered. An opinion, Chair, the question is on the adoption of the resolution. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. Opinion, Chair, the ayes have it. For what purpose does the lady of New Mexico
Requesting the recorded vote, Mr. Speaker.
Recorded vote is requested. Those favoring a recorded vote will rise. Sufficient number having risen, a recorded vote is ordered. Members will record their vote by electronic device. This is a 5-minute vote. members voted? Any member wish to change their vote? On this vote, the yeas are 217, the nays are 212. The resolution is adopted without objection. The motion to reconsider is laid upon the table.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Virginia seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to speak out of order for 1 minute.
Gentleman's recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I'm gathered here today with colleagues from the Commonwealth of Virginia and others with a heavy heart to announce to the House the passing of our friend and colleague, Congressman Jerry Connolly. I've had the distinct honor to serve alongside Jerry for many years. Jerry served in this chamber since 2009, and before that he served 14 years on the Board of Supervisors in Fairfax County, including 5 years as its chairman. Jerry was a tireless fighter for his constituents, an unwavering advocate for the federal workforce, and a true steward for our democratic institutions. He loved America, the Commonwealth of Virginia, and of course his beloved hometown of Fairfax. As the ranking member of the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform, he spent the last few months on the front lines as a chief advocate for our federal civil service workers. I deeply valued Jerry's partnership. We worked together to champion policies that strengthen our communities, protect workers' rights, and expand opportunities for all Americans. As his friend, I know I speak for all of us here to say that we will miss Jerry's infectious energy, his humor, and his unique ability to connect with people. This is a loss for this chamber, the Commonwealth of Virginia, and our entire nation. Our condolences go out to his wife, Smitty, his daughter, Caitlin, his staff, and the rest of his family and loved ones. Mr. Speaker, I'd now like to yield to my colleague from Virginia, Mr. Whitman.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. You know, I've had the honor and privilege to know Jerry Connolly for over 3 decades. He and I served in local government together for years. We're part of the Virginia Association of Counties. Jerry had a deep passion for Fairfax County, for the Commonwealth of Virginia, and for this nation. And you wouldn't find anybody that had a deeper knowledge of issues and knew more about what was best to be done and knew more about trying to find a place to agree, about getting things done. You know, it was really something special about Jerry. I remember us having discussions back in the day when we just started out in local government, because we both learned from each other. He came from a big county there in Fairfax County. I came from a small county. I live in a town today, population 350. We couldn't have been any more different in how we reflected on the counties that we represented. But you know what? We had a deep commitment to doing what was right. And you know, I learned a lot from Jerry in his perspective on Fairfax, but also his perspective on the Commonwealth and perspective on the nation. And he was always looking to find solutions. He was always very passionate about people, about making sure he understood the policies and understood how to get things done. Jerry was always committed to doing that. Jerry's legacy is going to live on forever in all of us. He'll live on forever in his family, and live on forever in the things that he's done for Fairfax County, for the Commonwealth of Virginia, and for our nation. We will miss Jerry, but we will remember his legacy through the things that he has done and through what he did to reach out to others and to look for common ground to get things done in the best interest of not only his constituents, but of our Commonwealth and of our nation. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I ask all of us to join in a moment of silence in honor of Jerry Connolly. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
It's really Mr. Speaker.
Yeah.
Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, the unfinished business is the vote on the passage of Senate Joint Resolution 31, on which the yeas and nays are ordered. The clerk will report the title of the joint resolution.
Senate Joint Resolution 31, joint resolution provided for congressional disapproval under Chapter 8 of Title 5 United States Code of the rules submitted by the Environmental Protection Agency relating to review of final rule reclassification of major sources as area sources under Section 112 of the Clean Air Act.
The question is on passage of the joint resolution. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 5-minute vote.
members voted. Any member wants to change their vote? On this vote, the yeas are 216, the nays are 212. The joint resolution without it is adopted. And without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Virginia seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I offer a privileged resolution and ask for its immediate consideration.
Clerk will report the resolution. Clerk will suspend for a moment. House will be in order. Members, please take conversations from the floor. Clerk will read the resolution.
House Resolution 435, resolved that the House has heard with profound sorrow of the death of the Honorable Gerald E. Connolly, a representative from the Commonwealth of Virginia. Resolved that the clerk communicate these resolutions to the Senate and transmit a copy thereof to the family of the deceased. Resolved that when the House adjourns today, it adjourn as a further mark of respect to the memory of the deceased.
Without objection, the resolution is agreed to and the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. Who are we going to first? For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Arrington, seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to House Resolution 436, I call up Bill H.R. 1, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, and ask for its immediate consideration in the House.
Clerk will report the title of the bill.
Union Calendar Number 78, H.R. 1, a bill to provide for reconciliation pursuant to Title II of House Concurrent Resolution 14.
Pursuant to House Resolution 436, an amendment in the nature of a substitute consisting of the text of the Rules Committee Print 119-3, modified by the amendment printed in House Report 119-113, is adopted and the bill as amended is considered read. The bill as amended shall be debatable for 2 hours, equally divided among and controlled by the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on the Budget, on their respective designees, and the chair and ranking minority member on the Committee of Ways and Means or their respective designees. The gentleman from Texas, Mr. Arrington, the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Boyle, the gentleman from Missouri, Mr. Smith, and the gentleman from Massachusetts, Mr. Neal, each will control 30 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Texas.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days within which to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material on H.R. 1.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, for the last 4 years, the American people have suffered one self-inflicted crisis after another, from the chaos at our southern border to our crime-ridden streets to a cost of living crisis that decimated working families from sea to shining sea, leaving Americans weaker, our country more divided and more vulnerable than it's been in generations. Colleagues, Lest we forget how we got here and why this moment is so important and so consequential in the life of our country, let's reflect on the recent history. Under the leadership of Biden-Harris and congressional Democrats, our federal government failed to enforce the laws of our land and unilaterally surrendered our sovereign border to terrorist drug cartels. On top of that, our military mission was reduced from warfighter readiness to ideological indoctrination. We lost the confidence of our allies, the respect of our enemies, and America's influence on the world stage. Unbridled spending and failed fiscal policies sent our country's economy into a tailspin. Trillions in deficit spending, trillions more in regulations, cradle-to-grave welfare without work, and an all-out assault on American energy independence wreaked havoc on our economy and created the worst inflation crisis in 40 years. In November, the American people gave President Trump an historic mandate and unified Republican leadership in Congress to reverse course on these failed policies and their disastrous consequences. And that's exactly what this bill does, Mr. Speaker. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act delivers the greatest single investment in border security and national defense, the largest tax cuts for families and small businesses, the most significant commitment to unlocking America's energy resources, and the largest reduction in spending in the history of the United States by twofold. But in an attempt to derail our efforts, you can be sure of this: our Democrat colleagues will use their tired old tactics of fear-mongering and false claims. They like to lead you to believe that this reconciliation bill is a, quote, tax cut for the rich on the backs of the poor. Their narrative throughout this process has not only been misleading, Mr. Speaker, and completely untrue, it preys on the fears of our nation's most vulnerable. Here's the truth. The 2017 tax cuts lowers tax rates for every American household at every income level, with the lower income families benefiting the most, while actually increasing the amount of taxes paid at the top 1%. 3 out of every $4 in the Trump tax cuts didn't go to corporations, they went to individuals. Workers experienced a record 25-year wage increase. Families received an additional $5,000 in median household income, and income for the bottom 50% grew 3 times faster than the top 1%. And as a result, Mr. Speaker, a record 6 million Americans were lifted out of poverty. This won't stop our Democrat colleagues from scaring you with fallacious statements that, quote, children will go without food, seniors will be stranded without health care, and the disabled will be left to die in the streets. All of this is just a cover for what they really want to do. They want to protect health care and welfare at any cost for illegal immigrants, at the expense of hardworking taxpayers and our citizens who depend on them. And crazy enough, Mr. Speaker, they also want to abandon the common sense Clinton-era work requirements that reduce government dependency by 80%. And instead, they would trap millions of people in poverty and rob them of the dignity of work. But by the overwhelming results of this last election, it's abundantly clear the American people see through this too. And they have totally rejected the Democrats' radical agenda. Their message to Washington was clear, Mr. Speaker. They want competent leaders, common sense policies, and a commitment from all of us to put America and Americans first. Now, let's give the people what they voted for. I reserve my time.
Reserves the balance of his time. Gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Boyle.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentleman's recognized.
Mr. Speaker, by my calculation, I have now been up 43 of the last 45 hours, and I'm not quitting yet. And we're not quitting yet, because the stakes are just too damn high. This is one of the most significant pieces of legislation we will ever vote on. This bill will bring about the greatest loss of health care in American history. More than 6 million Americans who are currently on the Affordable Care Act will lose their health insurance if this Republican bill becomes law. More than 7 million Americans currently on Medicaid will lose their health care if this Republican bill becomes law. In fact, in total, 13.7 million Americans will lose their health care, according to the nonpartisan CBO. That's bad enough. But then, late last night, we also got confirmation from CBO that something else is in this bill. Over $500 billion worth of cuts to Medicare. All told, given the cuts to the ACA, the cuts to Medicaid, the cuts to Medicare, the largest loss of health care in American history as a result of this bill. Not even during the Great Depression did so many people lose their health care as will lose it in this bill. And there are even more cuts beyond that. Cuts to nutrition assistance programs, cuts to Head Start, cuts to other education programs. The list goes on and on. Why? To help pay for over $5 trillion worth of tax cuts, most of which that go to the top 1%. But here's the thing. As draconian as these cuts are, they actually don't even come close to paying for the size of the tax cuts. So how is the rest subsidized? With more debt financing. So much so that we have finally seen, for the first time ever, the Moody's credit agency on Friday downgrade the quality of the credit of the United States. Today, we saw more market churn. Markets are worried. Now, most ordinary Americans, most people I call as neighbors and friends back home in Northeast Philly, a very working class and middle class place, most people I know aren't paying attention to the credit agencies and what Wall Street is doing. But here's the thing. It will affect interest rates. In fact, it already is. Mortgage rates have gone back up over 7% and set to rise by more. Not just mortgage rates, auto loan rates, the rate that your credit card company charges you. At a time of increasing unaffordability in America, this bill doesn't make the situation better. It makes it far, far worse. Mr. Speaker, this is not the kind of bill that is worthy of the Congress of the United States. This is class warfare. It makes the poor poorer, the rich richer, and the middle class left behind. And again, these aren't Democratic talking points. These aren't coming from progressive organizations. Last night, the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office released the distribution tables in terms of who will get what from this tax bill. They found the bottom 10% will be 4% poorer in household wealth under this bill, with most of the benefits going to the top 10% of Americans. And of that top 10%, of course, it is the top 1% that will get the most benefit of all. Robbing the poor to reward the rich. It is wrong, it is bad economics, and it is, as one Republican senator called it, morally wrong. With that, I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves the balance of his time. Gentleman from Texas.
Mr. Speaker, just to be clear, the CBO doesn't say economic benefits. It talks about federal resources. That letter actually affirms the success of our bill. We will actually have people, because of reasonable common sense work requirements and because of prohibitions on illegal immigrants getting taxpayer-funded social services, we'll actually have people moving up and out of the welfare trap. And we won't have people siphoning off money who are not eligible, and that is success. Not to them, but success to my Republican colleagues. With that, I yield 2 minutes to my good friend from the Keystone State, our Ag Chair, Mr. G.T. Thompson.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of the One Big Beautiful Bill that will halt the largest tax increase on American families, bolster our hardworking farmers and rural communities, and give President Trump the tools he needs to make America safe again. The Agriculture Committee was tasked with $230 billion in net deficit reduction. I'm proud to say we exceeded that instruction. We achieve these savings for America's taxpayers by restoring integrity to the SNAP program, reinforcing work, rooting out waste, and ending the unchecked overreach by states and the executive branch that's driven costs through the roof. SNAP is the only state-administered welfare program that does not have a cost share component. And while the federal government funds 100% of the benefit, states are tasked with operating it. The only problem? They aren't operating it well. In 2023 alone, over $13 billion in improper payments were made. That's not just a slap in the face to taxpayers, but of the needy families who rely on SNAP as well. We aren't just stopping at restoring the SNAP program to its original intent. We're also delivering big wins for rural America by shoring up the safety net for farmers and ranchers and providing critical tax relief. The One Big Beautiful Bill makes permanent and expands the Trump tax cuts. It also prevents the death tax from hitting over 2 million family farms. It locks in the small business deduction, helping 98% of American farms stay afloat. It expands immediate expensing so farmers can expense the tools that they use today to secure the harvest of tomorrow. It protects domestic biofuels from being crowded out by Chinese imports. It lowers the cost of borrowing for our farmers hit by Biden's sky-high interest. It reduces regulatory burdens on small farmers hiring seasonal workers. In short, this bill secures the safety net our farmers deserve and delivers to SNAP the accountability taxpayers demand. America's farmers, ranchers, and rural communities sent us here to fight for them, and the One Big Beautiful Bill delivers on that mandate.
Pennsylvania.
Thanks, brother.
This bill will kick 404,000 people in our state of Pennsylvania off their health insurance. With that, Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Texas, the ranking member of the Health Subcommittee on Ways and Means, Mr. Doggett.
Gentleman from Texas recognized for 1 minute.
Breaking yet another promise, Republicans are cutting Medicare by $500 billion. On October 1st of this year, every Medicare health care provider will see a 4% cut, and that will occur year after year after year as seniors try to find someone who will accept Medicare. And on January the 1st, millions of Americans who rely on the Affordable Care Act lose their access to a family physician. Medicaid for those in nursing homes, for half the babies born in my hometown of Austin, cut. Almost 14 million Americans losing their access to health care. And the new Trump school voucher sabotage plan, atop state vouchers, incentivizes removing students from public schools. Meanwhile, our national debt soaring by trillions from Republicans who talk fiscal responsibility, but serving their cult leader, the deficit hawks have become chicken hawks tonight in submission to Trump, the self-described king of debt, all to reward billionaires with even more tax breaks.
Mr. Chairman, I recognize my colleague, who I don't see is here. Yes, I do, right there, from Arkansas. Chairman of the House Financial Services, Mr. French Hill.
For how much time?
For 2 minutes.
For 2 minutes. Gentleman's recognized for 2 minutes.
I rise tonight in support of this reconciliation effort, and I thank my friend from West Texas, the home of natural security, for supporting this bill and working hard to bring it to fruition, bringing it to the House floor. Last month, the House Financial Services Committee completed our work assigned to us under the Budget Committee's reconciliation instruction. The resolution asked us to decrease the deficit by $1 billion during the planning period of 10 years. Our committee exceeded that objective, and we've saved the American taxpayers and cut the deficit in our plan by $5.2 billion in savings. During the markup, we spent 9 hours debating and considering 40 amendments from our friends on the other side of the aisle. After this exhaustive process, we favorably reported our committee print to fulfill our obligations under this bill. Mr. Speaker, we can't lose sight of the reason that we're here tonight on this House floor. In 2024, the American people voted for fiscal responsibility and real change. Our country is currently $37 trillion in debt, paying billions of dollars in interest each day on that debt. Congress must act. Today we start that process. For too long, the government spending has been a one-way road in the wrong direction. I'm proud of the work of the Financial Services Committee to do our part to reduce this deficit. I ask all my colleagues to support this bill, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Pennsylvania.
Thank you. I would remind my friend this bill would kick 131,000 people in Arkansas off their health insurance. With that, I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from the Commonwealth of Virginia, the distinguished ranking member of the Education and Workforce Committee, and also a member of the Budget Committee, Mr. Scott.
Gentleman's recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it's hard to take my colleagues on the other side of the aisle seriously when they give speech after speech after speech complaining about the deficit and then support this reconciliation bill that adds trillions of dollars to the national debt. The bill also not only increases the deficit, it has 4 million students who will lose their Pell Grants. 18 million children could potentially lose their free school lunch. 13.7 million people are set to lose their health care, and everybody loses when the National Institute of Health research is cut. This big, bad billionaires bill steals educational opportunities from students, cuts health care and food from working families, all to fund tax cuts for millionaires and billionaires, and then increases the national debt. Mr. Speaker, to paraphrase Harry Truman, this is not fear-mongering, it's the truth, but they just think it's fear-mongering. Vote no.
Gentleman from Texas.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, rather, my Democrat colleagues surely recognize and remember that for the last 4 years, they racked up $8 trillion in record debt. If you add the record interest rates from the record inflation, that'd be another $5 trillion. And so I don't know that we need a whole lot more lecturing on the national debt. Our balanced budget reconciliation bill actually reduces the deficit in the 10-year window by $140 billion, and it brings the debt to GDP down by 10 percentage points. With that, I yield to my friend from Kentucky, the chairman of the Energy and Commerce Committee, Mr. Brett Guthrie.
For how much time?
For 2 minutes.
Gentleman's recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I rise in support of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, which includes a title from Energy and Commerce that unleashes American energy, promotes American innovation, and protects care for our most vulnerable Americans. In 1965, President Lyndon B. Johnson created the Medicaid program to protect low-income families, individuals who are disabled, and seniors, and House Republicans share this commitment to this vulnerable population. This bill protects coverage for those individuals by ensuring ineligible recipients do not cut the line in front of our most vulnerable Americans. The decision by left-leaning state governments to spend taxpayer dollars on people who are ineligible for the program is indefensible. Medicaid should not cover illegal immigrants, deceased or duplicative beneficiaries, or able-bodied adults without dependents who choose not to work. Let's be clear. What my Democrat colleagues are prioritizing when they say they oppose our bill, what they're really saying is 4.8 million people who refuse to work a part-time job or volunteer in their community are entitled to free health care paid by hardworking taxpayers. When they're opposed to our bill, what they're really saying is that the 1.4 million illegal immigrants should be prioritized over U.S. citizens. When they say they oppose our bill, what they're really saying is that people who aren't eligible for Medicaid should be prioritized over children, mothers, or people with disabilities for whom the program was intended. House Republicans make no apologies for prioritizing Americans in need over illegal immigrants or other able-bodied beneficiaries who are choosing not to work. Along with work requirement, our bills rolls back restrictive Biden-era regulations, promotes transparency for pharmacy benefit managers, increases seniors' access to medication. These are all common sense policies that will strengthen our health care system, return taxpayer dollars to middle-class families. House Republicans are fighting for America's children. We're fighting for pregnant women and mothers. We're fighting for individuals with disabilities, and we're fighting for seniors who need long-term care. That is why I urge my colleagues to support this legislation as part of our effort. I support this bill, and I yield back.
Gentleman from Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd remind my good friend that this bill will kick 159,000 people in the Commonwealth of Kentucky off their health insurance. Mr. Speaker, I now yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from Vermont, a distinguished member of the Budget Committee, Ms. Ballant.
Gentlelady is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You have to ask yourself, why? Why are we here at 3 a.m. fast-tracking this bill? Well, this bill is nothing to be proud of. It's best to pass it in the night when most folks are asleep. What kind of nation are we when leaders choose to take food away from children? What kind of nation are we when they choose to take health care away from people? When they choose to add trillions of dollars to the deficit and pass those financial handcuffs off onto our grandchildren? What kind of nation are we when they choose to make those deficits force $500 billion of cuts to Medicare? What has happened this week is shocking. It's unconscionable. It's not leadership. It's moral failure. Kicking the poor in the teeth while rewarding the richest among us. My colleagues, Americans deserve so much better than this. So much better. And I urge my colleagues to reject this cruel, cynical bill.
Gentlelady's time has expired. Gentleman from Texas.
Mr. Speaker, 91% on average of my colleagues, voters, constituents, friends and families, they pay the standard deduction. Their opposition to this bill, if they were successful, would actually cut the standard deduction in half. And with that, I yield 2 minutes to my friend from Missouri, our T&I Chair, Mr. Graves.
Gentleman is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today in support of one big, beautiful bill which fulfills President Trump's agenda by securing our border, keeping taxes low for families and job creators, and restoring the nation's energy dominance and cutting waste, fraud, and abuse. The Transportation and Infrastructure Committee's portion of today's legislation combines critical investments in border security, national defense, and modernization of America's air traffic control system while eliminating wasteful spending and other deficit reduction measures. Specifically, this bill addresses long overdue needs in the United States Coast Guard, which for over 2 decades has received less than half of the capital investment necessary to effectively carry out its critical missions. The T&I Committee included more than $21 billion to recapitalize Coast Guard assets, including the acquisition of cutters, aircraft, polar icebreakers, along with the facilities that are needed to support them. In light of serious operational and financial challenges facing the FAA, the T&I Committee provided $12.5 billion down payment for finally modernizing our outdated air traffic control infrastructure. Finally, the bill addresses the chronic shortfall in the Highway Trust Fund by instituting a $250 annual fee on electric vehicles and $100 on hybrid vehicles, ensuring that all drivers contribute their fair share to maintaining our roads and bridges. In this measure, the T&I Committee prioritized core federal responsibilities, which included national defense, transportation safety, and infrastructure modernization, while also responsibly offsetting these investments with cuts to wasteful spending. Mr. Speaker, I'd urge my colleagues to support the legislation, and with that, I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Pennsylvania.
Mr. Speaker, I just want to correct a disingenuous argument that has been offered repeatedly. Folks on the other side, throughout this past week and a half, 2 weeks, and we hear it tonight, say, well, if we don't pass this bill, most Americans will face a tax increase. Completely false. Time and again over the last 2 weeks, both in Ways and Means and Rules, Democratic members offered amendments to protect and extend the tax cuts for every American making under $1 billion a year. Every single Democrat voted for those amendments. Every single Republican voted against them. With that, Mr. Speaker, I am happy to yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from Ohio, distinguished member of the Budget Committee, Ms. Kaptur.
Gentlelady is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you. Ranking Member Boyle, federal budgets are moral documents. They tell the American people who we value and who we leave behind. This budget is a bonanza for billionaires. It's paid for by cutting health care and food for millions of working families and seniors. The U.S. national debt stands at $36 trillion, and this bill will raise it to over $40 trillion. Historically, Republican administrations have ballooned the debt. Reagan, both Bushes, and Trump through tax cuts to the very rich coupled with endless wars. It's clear where the debt has come from. Trillions added, unpaid. Now they're coming after health coverage and food assistance. President Trump already has added $8.4 trillion to the debt from his last tax cuts. Meanwhile, as billionaires use their tax refunds to do stock buybacks, American workers are left behind. Let's call it what it is, another Republican budget buster, betraying working people while causing prices to rise. 40,000 people across the district I represent and nearly 14 million nationwide will lose coverage for health care to pay for these bonanzas for billionaires. Mr. Speaker, this bill must be
Gentlelady's time has expired.
Vote no. Thank you, and I yield back.
Mr. Speaker, I would remind my colleagues over the last 4 years, their failed economic policies, their unbridled spending put a 20% inflation, regressive inflation tax on working families all across this great land. With that, I yield to my good friend from Ohio, our GOP chair of the Judiciary Committee, Mr. Jim Jordan.
For how much time?
For 2 minutes.
Gentleman's recognized for 2 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, you know it's a good bill because the left hates it. The left that defunded the police, the left that let 10 million people illegally enter our country in a 4-year time span, the left that wants men to compete against women in sports, the left that lied to us about Benghazi, lied to us about the Hunter Biden laptop, lied to us about President Biden's health, the left that lied to us about COVID. You remember that. They got to go to the fancy restaurants, but all the people we represent, they couldn't go to church, couldn't go to work, couldn't go to school. The left doesn't like this bill. That tells you it's a good bill. This bill's about fundamental conservative principles, regular things that the American people appreciate. This bill cuts taxes. This bill requires work for able-bodied adults in our welfare system. This bill gives school choice to parents. This bill secures the border. We're the party that believes in letting moms and dads keep more of their money to spend on their goals and their dreams. We're the party that says if you get taxpayer funds and you're able-bodied, you should work. That's fair to the taxpayers. That's good for our economy. Most importantly, it's good for the recipient. We're the party that says parents, regular moms and dads, should get to pick where their kid goes to school so they can get the kind of education that will allow them to achieve the American dream. That's in this bill. And this bill secures the border. The primary issue of last fall's election, the issue that decided the election, the issue that put President Trump in the White House and Republicans in control of the Congress, this bill helps secure the border that President Trump's already got under control. That's why we should support this legislation. It cuts taxes, requires work for able-bodied adults, empowers parents to pick the school where their kid's going to get the best education, and secures the border like the American people want us to do. This bill is doing exactly what we told the voters we were going to do, and that's why we should support it. I yield back to the budget chairman and thank him for his good work on this legislation.
Gentleman from Pennsylvania.
Well done,
I would remind the gentleman this bill will kick 404,000 people in Ohio off their health insurance. I now yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from Washington, as a distinguished member of the Budget Committee, Ms. Jayapal.
Gentlelady is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill is a massive betrayal of working people and poor people across America. It strips at least 14 million Americans of their health care. It slashes food for the hungry, and it cuts basic needs for Americans across the country. And why? So that you can give a $5 trillion tax break to the wealthiest billionaires like Elon Musk. If you had a giant corporate lobby outside, you get a tax break. If you're in the top 0.1%, 0.1% of billionaires, you get a $398,000 tax break. If you're a millionaire, you get an average $83,000 tax break. But if you're a working person or a poor person, you are SOL. Al, you get kicked off your health care, you don't get the $2 a meal in SNAP benefits, and you get hungrier, you get poorer, you get sicker. And here's the thing, if you're so proud about this bill, why are we debating it at 1 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning? Why are these schedules getting rigged so that people don't actually get to see what we are doing here in this chamber? I yield back. I'm a hell no.
Members are reminded to direct their remarks to the chair. Gentleman from Texas.
Mr. Speaker, I have great respect for my ranking member, but he's rattling off numbers saying this many people will come off of the welfare rolls in my colleagues' districts. Let's remind the American people, the people he's talking about are folks who are in this country illegally, or they're able to work and they're not working. They're able to work and they're not working. So, Mr. Speaker, order, Mr. Speaker.
House will be in order.
So for the record,
Gentleman from Texas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For the record, they are opposing the common sense policy and what every American's expectation is at a base level that people who are able to work. It's good for their soul. It's good for this country. It's the right policy, and they're fighting us on it. And with that, I yield to my friend and Vice Chairman of the Budget Committee from the Keystone State for 1 minute, Mr. Lloyd Smucker.
Gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your work on this bill. Today, we are charting a bold new course for American prosperity. This bill not only builds on the pro-growth legacy of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, it prevents the largest tax hike in American history. Across the country, years of inflation have taken a bite out of everyone's paycheck. Groceries, gas, housing all cost more. Americans feel left behind, and this bill is the solution. It delivers immediate relief for working families. It locks in permanent tax cuts, unleashes economic growth, and puts American workers first. We're talking about saving 6 million jobs, cutting red tape, securing our borders, and supercharging Made in America manufacturing. And we do all this while achieving historic federal savings. It is possible to reduce spending, provide tax relief, and protect core services for Americans all at once. This is real, responsible leadership. Mr. Speaker, this bill is bold, immediately effective, and above all, it's common sense. It's time to pass this act and get America back on the path to prosperity.
Gentleman's time has expired. Gentleman from Pennsylvania.
Mr. Speaker, I have good news for my friend, the chairman of the Budget Committee. We just verified with the Congressional Budget Office, and of the 13.7 million Americans who will lose their health care because of their bill, exactly 0 are undocumented immigrants. So the complete artifice that the other side is attempting to convince you is that almost 14 million Americans will lose their health care, but don't worry about it. They're all illegals. They're all people who are defrauding the system. It's completely false, and every independent source has verified that it is false. Yay. With that, Mr. Speaker, I yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from California, distinguished member of the Budget Committee, Ms. Chu.
Gentlelady is recognized for 1 minute.
I rise in strong opposition to the Republicans' unbelievably ugly bill. This bill is worse than we thought. By ripping Medicaid and food assistance away from many millions of vulnerable Americans while slashing taxes for the ultra-wealthy, the nonpartisan CBO found that it would make the poorest 10% poorer while making the richest 10% richer. This bill would also increase the debt so much that it will trigger cuts to Medicare benefits by almost $500 billion. So to my Republican colleagues, think of my constituent Maria. Maria needs Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security to care for her daughter who resides in a nursing home, uses a feeding tube to eat, and can't recognize her mother. Maria asked, if Medicaid is cut, where would my daughter go? Tax cuts for the wealthiest at the expense of Maria's daughter getting the care she needs to survive is despicable. vote no on this bill.
Gentleman from Texas.
Mr. Speaker, according to Numbers USA, over the last 4 years when the Democrats were in charge of this town, and millions of people were flooding into this country from across our border, we were spending $9,000 per illegal immigrant on social services, taxpayer-funded social services. Mr. Speaker, that's more than we spend on our own citizens who depend on Medicaid. That's more than we spend on military benefits for our veterans. With that, Mr. Speaker, I yield 1 minute to my friend from California and fellow Budget Committee member, Mr. Tom McClintock.
Gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If this bill fails, an average family's taxes will rise 22% next year, about $1,700 a year, the biggest tax increase in American history. But if it succeeds, working families will be able to keep more of their earnings, will be able to complete the border wall and protect our communities from the violent cartels the Democrats allowed into our country. We'll relieve pressure on Medicaid by requiring able-bodied adults on it to look for work. And we can free up America's vast energy resources. You know, the most important economic indicator is how Americans answer this question next year. Are you better off today than you were 2 years ago? By this time next year, Americans could be enjoying one of the most explosive periods of growth in our history, and all that means: secure borders, safer communities, lower taxes, abundant energy, more and better jobs, a higher standard of living, and a better quality of life. A big, beautiful future for all Americans. I yield back.
Gentleman from Pennsylvania.
I would remind the gentleman that this bill would kick 1.98 million people in California off their health insurance. I now yield 1 minute to the gentleman from New York, distinguished member of the Budget Committee, Mr. Tonko.
Gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the gentleman for yielding. One of the very first bills I ever voted on as a representative in Congress was passing the Affordable Care Act and bringing historic access to health care to millions. That action reflects what Congress should be all about: helping everyday Americans, serving our communities, and fighting against the forces that seek to make us sicker, hungrier, and poorer. Unfortunately, today those forces are the Republican majority, the President of the United States, and the richest people on the planet. On top of constitutional crises, in the throes of a housing and cost of living emergency, and in the face of catastrophic climate change, Congress is set to make the largest cuts to health care, food assistance, and environmental protections in American history. Families in my district and across our country are hurting. You don't fix that pain by further ripping away the basic needs programs that help those struggling to get by. For me, the choice is clear. I will never stop fighting for my constituents and all Americans whose lives will be destroyed by this monstrosity of a bill. And with that, I yield back.
Gentleman from Texas.
Mr. Speaker, I yield a minute to my fellow Texan, Mr. Gill, who's also on the Budget Committee.
The gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, so much of what we